The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Morning, afternoon, everyone. We'll get going here in just a couple minutes. I see as people continue to come in, but give us about 2 or 3 more minutes and then we'll get going. All right, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, or myself today, for our monthly webinar, this month focusing on fraternity men and their masks of masculinity. A few logistical things before we get going. You all are currently on mute, and so if you have any questions, there is a spot there should be a spot in the panel to ask those questions. And so throughout, I'll be checking those and either answering them as we're going throughout the webinar or most likely just at the end. That's typically the easiest to do, but go ahead and just type those in there if you have any. Also, additionally, just want to thank you, as always, for participating today and being a volunteer and an advisor for our undergraduate men. If it really wasn't, if you all weren't doing what you did for undergraduate men, they wouldn't be having the experiences they were having or having the mentorship that they're having as well. So I do want to express my gratitude and thank you towards that. Like I said, today we're talking about fraternity men and their masks of masculinity. My name is Hayden Ron. I am a graduate of the University of Oregon in 2016, where I was an undergraduate member of DU. I currently serve staff as our expansion and development coordinator, so I oversee all of our expansion efforts, both short and long term, as well as serve as a chapter liaison to 9 of our undergraduate chapters. The idea and premise behind this webinar this month was really about a book that I read by Howe called The Mask of Masculinity. I picked it up probably last November, with this goal of understanding the idea of masculinity a little bit better so I can better do my role on staff when working with undergraduate men. I was thoroughly impressed by this book, of what it taught me and how I can relate that to the 18 to 22-year-olds that we work with on a daily basis. And so really wanting to share what this book is about and what Lewis Howes has to say about these masks that our men might be living through or be wearing during their undergraduate time. And so the overview of this is exploring the 9 different masks of masculinity that Lewis Howe outlines in his book and better understand how each relates to the fraternity men that you as advisors work with. Lewis Howe, really this is going to be a surface level conversation because of the time constraints, and I'm going to try to go as in depth as possible with you, but I really encourage you, if you have additional questions, at the very end I'll have my email if you want to talk a little bit more about what was discussed here. Would definitely be happy to discuss that, but also encourage you to pick up or buy this book and read it for yourselves, because it really gives some good in-depth conversation about how these masks look on a daily basis for men, and how we can help strip those away so they can be more of their true authentic self. And that's really his goal of the book, is to show men how to be that authentic self, what this idea of masculinity really means, and really how throughout our lives we are masking certain emotions or certain things about ourselves because of this idea of being masculine, and because of what the media, the television, social media is telling us what men and how men are supposed to act. So really the premise of the book is looking at these 9 masks of masculinity, and here they are laid out. And so what we're going to do today is talk more in depth about each one of the 9 masks, and then at the very end talk a little bit about how these masks are fluid and how they change over time, how they can be worn at the same time, and how we all can work together to help strip these masks away, and allow for men to have a richer experience, richer relationships, and really ultimately, like our mission of our organization, build our men into becoming better men. So the 9 masks are the Stoic Mask, the Athlete Mask, the Material Mask, the Sexual Mask, the Aggression Mask, the Joker Mask, the Invincible Mask, the KnowItAll Mask, and the Alpha Mask. And so we're going to start off with the first mask here. There we go, the Stoic Mask. The Stoic Mask, really the characteristics, and what I'll do for each mask is go over the characteristics of the mask and then what is available when this mask is stripped away. And the reason I did this second part is because it's really important to see what the individual can gain when they take off this mask, and what this individual might be missing should they be wearing this mask. And so with the Stoic Mask, the characteristics of this mask that you might see are emotions are being carefully managed and suppressed. An individual who is wearing this mask might feel as though, or see men as somebody who isn't supposed to cry, isn't supposed to feel pain, isn't supposed to really have these feelings. They view weakness as an invitation to scrutiny, to judgment, to rejection. Personally, I've struggled with the Stoic Mask myself, especially as an undergrad, even more so when I was on the executive board, thinking that I had to carefully manage and suppress my emotion, because if I showed any type of weakness, then the chapter or international or my alumni advisors were going to think that there was something really going wrong in the chapter, or I wasn't capable of my job. And so I wore this mask a lot during my 2 years on the executive board, because I was trying to show, or felt as though I needed to suppress my emotion and suppress and manage what that looked like, because that's what men and that's what leaders are supposed to do. What this did for me, and what this does, as Lewis Howe talks about, is it doesn't allow for emotional freedom. It doesn't allow for this true permission to feel, to really have the authentic feeling. And so when we're stripping this mask away, the men who are wearing this mask, or who have this mask on, will find some more emotional freedom. They'll have deeper relationships with others, because they'll be a little bit more vulnerable, to have those conversations, to know that it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to be weak. They'll feel a weight off their shoulders, so they no longer have to stress about managing their emotions or suppressing those emotions, that it's really okay to be weak and be vulnerable. And the last piece is having that permission to feel, having that permission to have some of those emotions and not having to hide those from anyone. So that's the Stoic Mask. The next mask is the Athlete Mask. The Athlete Mask is an individual who's wearing this might show the characteristics of spending hours working out. They're hours playing sports, getting in shape, playing intramurals. They're playing every intramural the chapter has to offer. They're always in the gym. They're dominating on the field or on the court. And really this idea of I need to win at all costs without the fear of pain or injury. They see men of having the strongest man or somebody who's the most masculine needs to be the one who is the strongest, who's the fastest, who's the most agile, who's the quickest, who's the most muscular. So they're all about being that top of the line athlete. And so what this does is it lacks balance in this individual's life because they see that all they need to be doing is striving to be the most athletic. And so when you strip this mask away, it allows for that individual to be more creative, to learn new experiences, to have a balance in their life. They're not only going to class and going to the gym, but they might be volunteering. They might be writing poetry if that's something they're interested in. They may be attending speakers on campus. They have time to do more because they don't always feel as though they need to be spending hours upon hours in the gym or playing every intramural sport, and so all their free time is either in the gym, in the class, or on the field. And so it allows for them to gain new experiences, become more cultured on campus, and really get involved and have a greater impact. The third mask that we'll talk about here, there we go, as my slides are giving me a little problem, is the Material Mask. The Material Mask is all about material things, obviously, as the mask says. It's about buying the nicest car, the nicest watch, the nicest clothing brand. The one I always like to think about is what's the newest pair of Nikes. I hear that a lot when talking with undergraduates. They want to flaunt those material objects because they believe when they wear this mask that a man's worth depends on the amount of money in his bank account. So the more he can show that he has money, the more he can show that he has material objects, the more of a man he is. And so this really is a struggle for somebody who's wearing this mask to build deep relationships and feel as though their achievements are actually worthy of them if they're not material achievements. And so when you strip this mask away, the individual is going to find more fulfillment. They're going to find they're going to be more satisfied with their achievements, even if their achievements don't have material gain to them. They're going to find inner peace. And I think the biggest thing is they're going to attract people who are interested in who they are and not what they have. And so that's going to be a key piece. And what the individual will see is I'm actually feeling more fulfilled with my relationships because I have a deeper connection with that individual rather than that individual is just hanging out with me or just friends with me because I drive around the nicest car. I'll take them to the movies in the nicest car. I have the newest video games. I live in the nicest apartments in town or on campus, whatever that looks like. That will switch their relationships when this mask is stripped away to actually being more of who they are and not what they have. The fourth mask is the Sexual Mask, and this mask is all about the idea that a man is defined by his sexual conquest. It's how do I sleep with as many women as possible? How do I sleep with more women than my friend? How do I be competitive enough to know that this weekend I slept with X amount of women? It's all about that sexual conquest. They hate the ideas of relationships. They think having a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever that looks like, is a horrible idea. Putting labels on it, becoming too emotionally attached. They don't want that intimate relationship. That's not what a man does. It's more about the sexual conquest and being, as Lewis Howe calls it, a ladies' man or a player. What is available when this mask is stripped away is there's actually true partnership and fulfilling intimate relationships because they're going to have more of those deeper conversations. They're going to see that relationships and having deeper conversations is going to give me more fulfillment in life. I'm going to feel more grounded. I'm going to feel more worthy. And I'm not just sleeping around and having these friendships, but they're not as deep as I would like. And so this Sexual Mask, when you're able to strip that mask away, these men are finding more of those true partnerships and finding more of those true intimate relationships. The next mask is the aggression mask, and as it's really talked about in the title, it's all about being aggressive and all about being tough, sometimes to the point of being violent. It's this idea that men need to have enemies, they need to get in fights. That's the way they prove themselves. That's the way they show that they're more superior than another man, because ultimately men are hunters and not gatherers. That's what they are. They are the aggressive ones who, if I get in a disagreement or I get disrespected, I'm going to be violent, aggressive, tough to show that I'm better than you. This is really bad because a man who's wearing this mask might not have emotional control. They might not have patience or self-awareness. They might not be able to forgive others, even if it's for something small. They might continue to have conflicts with brothers within the chapter that stem from, freshman, sophomore year if they continue to wear this mask for a long time. So when we work to strip this mask away, we're going to show that individual is going to see that they have more emotional control. They're more patient and they're more self-aware of their emotions. They're going to be more responsive than reactive. They're going to be able to positively think about how they're going to react to a situation and respond to a situation rather than just ultimately in first thought say, I'm going to be violent, I'm going to be tough, I'm going to be aggressive, I'm going to get into a fight. And the last, and I think most important, because I've seen this play out in my own chapter when I was an undergrad, is they're able to forgive others and themselves. So I've had experiences as an undergrad where there's somebody looking back now that I know this information was probably wearing the aggression mask at a certain time. And when they took that off, maybe a year down the line, 6 months down the line, they were able to forgive somebody of something they'd done in the past that they were holding kind of that grudge over, or thought that, yeah, I'm never going to forgive you for that. But when they took this off, they realized, okay, I need to forgive. I have more control of my emotions. I'm more self-aware of what that looks like. And it just really built them into becoming that better man, and having more of a fulfilled and authentic relationship in life and experience within the chapter. The next one is the Joker mask. And I would say when reading Lewis Howe's book, this is the mask that's the hardest to really realize that somebody is wearing it, because this person is most likely always in a good mood and they're always joking, they're always using sarcasm. And who doesn't love to laugh? Who doesn't love to have a good time and throw some jokes around and whatnot? So sometimes I would say this might be the hardest one to see and really understand, but it gets to the point where it's very clear that the person's wearing a Joker mask when they are deflecting problems with humor. So you as an advisor might be talking with an undergraduate, and you might bring up a problem or a situation within the chapter, and the first response of this man who is wearing the Joker mask is something of a joke, maybe it's sarcasm, some type of humor, and that might be a red flag to say, okay, this person might be wearing the Joker mask, and we need to figure out how we're going to strip that away, because if you're consistently deflecting with humor, then there's probably some deeper issues that you're dealing with. And so that can become a problem. They can feel as though they don't have rich experiences, or they're not feeling enough, which we'll get to here when talking about what's gained when you strip this mask away. I think the best way that Lewis Howe puts it is you're going to expect a knock-knock joke and not an open door. So expect that this person's not just going to totally open the door for you and let you know everything about what's going on. They're most likely going to tell a joke. They're most likely going to use sarcasm, some type of humor in their conversation. So when you strip this mask away, this person's going to be taken more seriously by other people. I personally know individuals who, anytime you bring up a topic, whether it's a little more lighthearted or a little bit more serious, they're always going to be joking about it, and it's a little bit hard to take that person seriously. And so when that mask is stripped away, they'll be able to have people take them more seriously. They'll have richer experiences with others, and they'll have some time to find some healing and connection. And so what Lewis Howe says is that a lot of times the people who are wearing the Joker mask are actually dealing with a lot of personal emotion, whether that be depression, sadness, anxiety, and they're using humor and they're using sarcasm and they're using being funny as a way to cope with that. And they're actually not, they're needing a healing process, but they're not getting that because they're masking what that looks like. Because if we go back to the first mask in the Stoic Mask, it's not manly or it's not masculine to show your emotion or show weakness or show that you might be depressed or might be sad. So this is a little bit of a complicated one, but I will say that it's one that to be very aware of because of the emotion that might be behind what they're masking if they are always joking or always using sarcasm. The next one is the Invincible Mask. I would say this is very prevalent in between 18 and 22-year-olds because it's all about being fearless. It's all about being a risk taker. It's all about this attitude of, I got this, I'll be fine. I don't think of the consequences. I just want to make the best memories. I want to be the most successful. So whatever risk I'm willing to take, I have no fear of that. And that is just really difficult for men to be wearing that mask because if you have that on, you're risking in some cases your life. They might not have the self-esteem or courage to stand up and say, hey, this is a consequence that could happen. Should we make this decision or should I personally make this decision? And so when we strip this mask away, that person is going to have a more fulfilled and healthy lifespan. They're going to have more self-esteem and true courage about stepping in and saying, this is a possibility and this is a consequence. Let me kind of process that and understand what that looks like. And most importantly, they're going to find the permission to just be and not always having to constantly do. So they're going to have that permission to feel as though they can just be themselves and not feel as though they need to constantly be doing something, constantly be taking a risk or constantly be not thinking about their consequences. They can just be who they are and be comfortable with that. The eighth one is the KnowItAll Mask, and the KnowItAll Mask is all about being intellectually dominant. So this is the individual who knows it all. They certainly don't need your help. They're an expert in all subjects, no matter what that means. You talk about a budget and finances with the chapter, that person knows it, don't need your help. You talk about recruitment, been through it, I know exactly what I need to do. You talk about associate member education, oh, that's easy, I went through that, no problem whatsoever. And so this person always knows the answer. They always need to be intellectually dominant because men are supposed to be intellectually dominant. That's why they wear this mask. It's because that's what they perceive masculinity being, and that's what they perceive being a man, is being this intellectually dominant person. What this does when they wear this mask, it doesn't allow for them to learn because they're too stubborn to. They don't want to take advice. They don't want to listen to others because they already know it all. And if they accept the fact that they don't know something, they're not being dominant. And so that's not masculine. And so what we do when we strip away this mask is it allows for them to have the freedom to not know, the ability to learn and grow as an individual. They have deeper intimacy and support from others, and they have wisdom from others. They're going to understand that you as an advisor, you as a volunteer, you as an alumnus, understand and have a great wealth of knowledge, and they should be listening and using that rather than trying to be dominant over that. And so when you strip that away, they're going to learn a lot more, and they're going to be able to grow and build themselves so much more than if they just continue to wear this mask. And the last one is the Alpha Mask. The Alpha Mask is all about dominating and winning everything. It goes a step further than the Athlete Mask because it's winning and dominating everything on and off the court. They have to be in control. They have to be the leader. They have to be in the conversation. They have to have their opinion heard. They really are more about taking control of everything. This idea that a man can't ever do anything or a woman would do. That's just not what a man does. A man needs to be an alpha, and a man needs to be dominant, and a man needs to be in control. Now, when we strip this mask away, they feel and they have the ability of letting go of being in control, but it also switches how they're being in control in this fact of they're empowering others in leadership and control positions. And they feel the joy of being in service to others and being in service to their chapter and being in service to their community. And so really stripping away allows for them to have a more fulfilled experience, even if they're in that leadership position, have a fulfilled experience by empowering others around them than always feeling like they have to dominate and win everything. So that's the alpha mask. And those are the 9 masks there. Those are the 9 that we went through. And so there's some important points. If you have any questions over the 9, go ahead and type those in, and I can answer those here at the end. But those are really the brief overview of what the 9 masks look like and what's available when that mask is stripped away. So when we look at these different masks, and it's a very important point to note that the masks that Lewis Howes talks about in his book are fluid and can change over time. So it's not one of these things where an individual, any man, in this case 18 to 22-year-olds, and our fraternity men are undergraduate men, it's not as though they come into our undergraduate experience and our chapters wearing one mask and that's it. And as soon as they strip that mask away, they won't ever wear another mask for the rest of their undergraduate time or the rest of their life. It's quite the opposite. Masks are fluid. They can come and go. It really depends on the individual's kind of time in their life, what they're going through, what they might be dealing with. I know personally, like I said, I struggled with having the Stoic Mask on when I was in school. Even as a freshman, struggled with the Invincible Mask. And as I continue to move kind of on in my life, I'm struggling with other masks currently and trying to deal with that. And so it kind of shows that this is a fluid process and that we need to be aware of that. That if you're working with one student as an associate member compared to that same student as an executive board member, the masks might be different. And so I tried to portray that here on this slide, that as an associate member, and this is for just one specific member. So this member, maybe as an associate member, was wearing the Invincible Mask. He was wearing, the mask. I can do anything. I'm a risk taker. I'm fearless. It's my first time away from home. I'm 18 years old. I need to create the best memories ever in college because that's what's going to be. I only have 4 years to do this, and I have no worry about my consequences whatsoever because my parents aren't here and nobody's telling me what to do. They also might be wearing the aggression mask, in which, again, they're away from home. They're 18 years old. They haven't really had to deal with huge conflict or conflict on their own without their parents. And so they kind of struggle with this idea of, I need to show that I'm a man, but I'm also dealing with conflict. So it turns into them being very aggressive, very tough, having enemies, being non-forgiving, just like we talked about in the aggression mask, what those characteristics might look like. Or they might be having the sexual mask, where it's, again, their first time away from school. They're 18 years old. They are on their own, and because of what they've seen in movies, in TV, on social media, it's all about this sexual conquest. And so I need to make sure that I'm sleeping with the most women, and I'm not even thinking about the idea of having a girlfriend anytime soon. So that might be what this member is like as an associate member. Fast forward 2 or 3 years down the road, that same member has grown over time. Maybe they've obviously gone through the associate member education program. They maybe have gone to some educational programs. They've had maybe some summer internships on their own. They've built relationships within the chapter, and now they're on the executive board. And so they were able to strip away their Invincible Mask. They were able to strip away their aggression mask, their sexual mask, and now they're focusing on a whole different ball game on the executive board. And now they're thinking, okay, I'm a little bit older and now dealing with a little bit different things in my life. And so first off, I'm on the executive board, so I need to suppress and manage my emotions. So I need to be very stoic. I need to make sure the chapter doesn't seem weak. The executive board doesn't seem weak, because if I do, then there's going to be some judgment to that. People are going to think, oh, I can't do my job well. There's just going to be some backlash to it. So now that I'm on the executive board, I'm going to be wearing that Stoic Mask. They also might say, okay, I've been in the chapter for a while, so I know it all. I've seen recruitment a few times. I've worked with a budget. I'm on the executive board. I know how philanthropies work. I'm involved on campus. I know it all. Nobody else does. I don't need anyone else's opinion. maybe a few guys here or there that I really trust, but really, my opinion, I'm dominant in that. I know what's going on, and I know what's best for this chapter. And maybe they might be wearing the material mask, where they're now maybe a junior or a senior, and they've gotten their own job and they're making money, and they want to flaunt that by wearing the nicest things and showing, hey, I have money now, and I was away from my parents. I'm being successful here in school, and I've had internships, I've had jobs, and now I can go and buy my own things, and that's who I am, and that's what makes me worthy, and that's what fulfills me, and that's it. So really, the point is understanding as an advisor that when you're working with undergraduates, they might be dealing with a whole set of masks when they first start out in the chapter compared to when they're seniors in the chapter, even compared to when they're sophomores. And so really understanding that these are fluid, and being aware of that is going to be really helpful if you're thinking about this or working with an undergraduate and thinking about what mask they might be wearing at a certain time. It's also good to note here that multiple masks can be worn at once and to varying levels. So this can be a little bit complicated, but I tried to break it down for you just using 3 masks. So what Lewis Howe explains in his book is that different masks can be worn at the same time, but some might show more than others. So a mask isn't just, I'm wearing this mask and there's no other mask that I'm wearing during this time in my life. No, it's again the opposite, where in this case, this individual is wearing 3 different masks, and they might be coming out or showing up in different ways depending on what they're doing, depending on the time of the year, or just depending on their different roles, either as a student, as a chapter brother, or just as a family member in their own family. So, for example, this individual might have the KnowItAll Mask on, they might have the athlete mask on, and they might have the aggression mask on. So this specific chapter member is the one who's always giving his insight at chapter. He fails to listen to others. He always thinks he's right. Anytime there's a discussion with the chapter, he's the first one to have an opinion, first one to say, this is the way it needs to be done. I have experience in this. And really is hard to try to have anyone else disagree, or it's really difficult for this person to understand anyone else's point of view. They also might be wearing the athlete mask. So outside of chapter, this person might be the one who's always at the gym, always dominating in intramurals, always the captain of the intramural team. Maybe he's the one who's organizing intramurals, whatever that might be. He might also be wearing that mask because he feels as though, again, in order to be a man, in order to show masculinity, he needs to be the fastest, strongest, most dominating athlete in the chapter. And then the last, he might be also wearing the aggression mask. So on top of knowing it all, on top of trying to be the best athlete and the best intramural sports chapter brother, he also might be the one who is consistently getting into fights with brothers on a consistent basis, whether that be outside of chapter, maybe it's at the chapter house, maybe it's on the weekends, maybe these are just disagreements and verbal arguments. There may be the one incident where it turns violent and he just becomes too aggressive. And so then the chapter is going to need to deal with that. And so I think it's really important to understand that these individuals and the individuals that we're working with, the undergrads that we're working with, are going to be wearing different masks at different times, but also can be wearing multiple masks at the same time. And so that can sometimes be a challenge to kind of process, well, how do I, as an advisor, as somebody who's working with the undergrads, help this individual try to strip these masks away to help them have a more fulfilled and authentic experience within the chapter. And so in each part of the book that Lewis Howe explains these masks, at the very end, he talks about ways in which others can help men strip their masks away. And there were 4 common themes that I picked up when looking at or reading these sections in each one of the chapters. The first one was be patient and listen. So as we all know, 18 to 22-year-olds are obviously experiencing college. They're going through just a different chapter in their life. They're trying to still understand who they are, what they want to do, what they want to study, what their career is going to be. They also, at the very beginning of their undergraduate career are trying to fit in. And then at the very end of their undergraduate career, trying to figure out what do I do next after 4 years of being here. So as staff members, as volunteers, as advisors, we just need to be patient and we need to listen to them. We need to try to understand where they're coming from, try to really be patient to know that they're still trying to figure out everything. And so trying not to rush that and trying to find that balance of being patient, but also pushing them and challenging them a little bit. The second one is encouraging them to get out of their comfort zone by doing something that may be different and or may challenge them. This one is really important because the more that the more as us as staff can encourage our undergraduate men to do something that's different, that's out of their comfort zone, the more that they're going to grow, and hopefully the more they're going to realize they might actually be wearing a mask. And so that really that really is something that that we can encourage them to do, whether that be maybe you're dealing with somebody that you're like, okay, they might be wearing this athlete mask. And so maybe I'll encourage them to go volunteer, or encourage the chapter to go volunteer out in the community, right? We're always doing that, but maybe pushing them a little bit more, asking, hey, is there volunteer opportunities that you like to do, right? And listening to what they're talking about and trying to understand. So really encouraging them and pushing them outside their comfort zone. The third is continuing to remind them that you are there to support and talk to them when they are ready. So you as an advisor obviously are there to support them, you're there to help them, you're there to guide them through their chapter and undergraduate experience in DU. And so always the constant reminder that, look, we're here to support you. I'm here as a resource. Whenever you want to talk, if there's anything that's bothering you, if there's anything that's coming up, let me know. I'm here and I'm ready to talk with you. I found that this has been pretty successful, especially when I go on maybe chapter visits and I'm having a conversation and just reminding them, hey, look, even after I leave this chapter visit, I'm still here to support you. And if anything comes up, let me know. I've had undergraduates who have reached out to me, who have had conversations on different pieces or things that are happening in the chapter, just wanting some different advice on. And so they are, in my experience, always wanting to know that they're supported. And so us just continuing to remind them of that support is really helpful. And then the last one is to lead by example. And this is one that I think is really helpful for me, is giving my own personal examples of different things. Or when talking to a chapter, you as advisors, there might be something that comes up. And let's say you're talking to the executive board and you say, hey, this is how I feel about this situation. I'm a little nervous. Here might be some consequences to that. Here are some other ideas to that. And so you're opening that door for you to kind of be vulnerable a little bit as the advisor. And so then they may feel a little bit more comfortable to have that conversation as well. Because they can say, okay, I feel a little bit more comfortable in this situation. It's okay to say that we're a little nervous or a little anxious about something. And so let's continue to push that a little bit. And that will continue to help strip these masks away. I will say that it's very prevalent throughout the book that Lewis Howe says this is a very difficult process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. But these are all things that you can be doing as an advisor, and we can be doing as staff, and myself personally when working with undergraduates, to help strip these masks away and help undergraduate men kind of understand themselves a little bit and understand who they are and how they can have that richer experience and richer relationships there. And really ultimately, what Lewis Howe says is, when stripped of the various masks of masculinity, men are free to be who they actually are. They can love, they can find their purpose, they can connect, they can actually work harder, do more, be better, and appreciate every step of the way. And I really like this quote because it shows that sometimes these masks are a barrier to who that individual actually is. I've seen this personally. The masks that I've worn in the past and currently wear can sometimes be a barrier for me to connect with certain people, for me to appreciate every step of the way, even if that kind of trail or path is difficult. It allows for me to do more, be more authentic to myself, have richer conversations with people, feel as though I have a greater purpose in what I'm doing. And so really that goal is, how do we strip those masks away to allow for these men to feel as though they have that purpose, to feel as though they can connect, they can work harder, they can do more, they can appreciate their undergraduate experience just that much more. And so this is one of the quotes that I really enjoyed throughout the book, and one that Lewis Howes talks about at the beginning mainly of the book in trying to understand, trying to help the reader understand what the outcome is when these masks and various masks are stripped away from men. So with that being said, I am going to open it up for questions. So if you do have questions, go ahead and write it in the section, and I'll read them off and try to the best of my ability answer them. I will also, if there's a question I can't really answer right now, I can see who asked it, so I definitely can follow up with you over email or over the phone on it. So I want to make sure I give you the best answer I can, or the most accurate information I can. So we do have one question. It says, any cautions with the idea of stripping masks away? Playing psychologist, we are often dealing with fragile psyches. I would say, let's see, any cautions with the idea of stripping masks away? So I think that there's obviously caution with fully stripping away too quickly. So you want to make sure, and that's really the idea, I think, in the later part when you're talking about what you can do as an advisor, is being patient with them. So we definitely want to strip them away. You don't want to totally strip them away of saying like never go to the gym or never buy something nice. But we just want to be able and be cautious with how quickly we're doing it and to what extent that might look like. Again, like I said, this is very difficult, and I definitely would encourage anyone who wants some more information or want to read a little bit more in depth about this to read Lewis Howe's book, because that's really going to be helpful, and he has some good ideas and some good personal storytelling and some good interviews with other people on what those cautions might be, what it looks like being patient and kind of helping that person work through stripping that mask away. I think that's a really great question. And I would say just right now, it's really about being patient and not speeding the process up too much, because from my understanding and from what I got out of the book, if you speed that process up too much, it can cause that person maybe more harm, or maybe just not fully getting the outcomes that we're looking for. So it's really being patient, listening to that person, and just kind of working through and supporting them through that. So if there are any other questions, those can continue to come through, and I'd be more than happy to answer those. I will right here put up my email address. It's Ron, RAHN, @deltau.org. So if you have any specific questions or would like to reach out to me to have any other conversations or discussion, or want to set up a phone call, I would be more than happy to do that with you. Go ahead and shoot me an email. Love to kind of talk about this, talk about your experience maybe as an advisor. If you have any specific problems, if you have any specific questions or concerns, be more than happy to answer those or talk with those through you. I want to be a resource for you. I know that, and again, or I want to be a resource for you. Staff wants to be a resource for you. So there's my email. So feel free to reach out there. It doesn't look like any other questions are coming through. I do want to thank everyone who joined for joining today and taking. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't click the questions panel the whole way. So I can definitely send out a PDF presentation of this. I can download that and send that to you. I would say this is something that you all as advisors can kind of use for just kind of understanding and questions there for your understanding and just working with the advisors. That probably is really the intent of this, is just understanding the different masks that the undergraduates that you're working with are wearing. And if you want to have greater conversation on what that looks like, or how we can articulate to the undergrads, we definitely can. But this really was for you all to understand. The undergraduates that you are working with might be dealing with just different masks, and these are the 9 that were presented in Lewis Howe's book that I read, obviously. Let's see here. Is there a kind of a handout or activity? I would say this is really a starting piece for us, and I think this is going to create more conversations on staff. Is how do we talk and maybe create more breakout or educational program sessions for our undergraduates. So I think that's definitely something in the works. But nothing right now of there being an activity or anything that's going to help them understand their masks or what that might look like currently, but always obviously more than willing, and probably will continue to have that discussion on doing something like that. So I appreciate that. I also, again, do apologize. I didn't see all the questions come in there. Let's see here. And let's see if there's any other questions we have. All right. So it looks like that's all the questions we currently have. If you have any other specific ones, let me know. Again, shoot me an email, and I'd be more than happy to answer those for you. I can definitely get a PDF presentation out to you if you want more information or want the slides. Just go ahead and email me, and we can definitely make that happen. Again, I appreciate you all joining me today for this webinar and this concept. It's going to be a continual conversation on my point on staff in making sure that we have healthy discussion both with advisors and with our undergraduate men on this. So I appreciate it. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Again, reach out to me if you need anything, and thank you all once again for your support and your work you do with our undergraduate men. So thank you.